Women in Bitcoin is sponsored by BTCX, Sweden's first and most experienced Bitcoin exchange. Since 2011, we've helped Swedes buy and sell Bitcoin without the unnecessary hassle. We've stripped away all the noise. With us, you get a simple, safe and smooth way into the economy of the future, which, by the way, is already here. Head over to bt.cx and hop on the Bitcoin train today. Okay, so welcome to the 10th, actually, episode. So we're 2 digits now of Women in Bitcoin. And today we're celebrating this by inviting this very inspiring guest, a woman wearing many hats. But what we most love is that she proudly presents herself as a mother first and foremost in her LinkedIn profile, before adding vice president of Terahash, co-founder of Les Femmes Orange, and chair of the European Bitcoin Energy Association, EBEA. Yes. So welcome to our podcast, Rachel Geyer.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me. This is a real treat to be on a woman podcast. I think my life is very male dominated at the moment, which is great, but I love the female energy.
Yeah, how many female Bitcoin podcasts have you attended so far?
It's not zero, but I would say, and I've been now on a lot of podcasts, I can think two women who interviewed me, and the rest were all male. Yeah. Wow.
Good. Yeah, we're up and coming. So yes, we actually really enjoyed that you described yourself as a mother first and foremost with a big M. And I think I've met you I think once physically in person, and also we've been talking and having a few meetings around Les Femmes Orange. But I think this tells a lot about you being a mother. You use it in your in your everyday work, and I've been listening to many podcasts with you, and you bring this up as a strength. So can you please tell us something about what motherhood means to you and your work?
Everything. With every gene of my body, I'm a mother. And I think that when I was at university, and I studied business studies at university with German and French, and I remember just before we were graduating, and the professor went around the room and he said to all the students, what do you want to do? Where do you want to go? What do you want to be? And when it got to me, I said, I want to be a mother. And everybody laughed. And then they said, well, why did you go to university for? I said, well, I want to be an educated mother. And I think, the more that I've thought about it, especially since coming into contact with Bitcoin, the more I think that we have gone so down the wrong path. And what is really missing today is the feminine qualities that are so needed for bringing up your children. I mean, what job is more important than bringing up the next generation?
Absolutely.
Zero. And when I spent a quarter of a century, I've got 4 children, and I spent a quarter of a century focusing on bringing up the children. And I had to hear again and again, don't you work? And I knew I had never worked harder in my entire life. And as soon as you said, I'm a mother, it was a conversation stopper.
Yeah.
You weren't interesting and you weren't important. And I mean, I'm fortunate that I'm fairly confident in myself anyway, so I knew that I was doing what I wanted to do, so it didn't particularly bother me. But having come across Bitcoin, it's made me think about this. And what a disservice. And it's not blaming anyone here, because women, we're our own worst enemies.
Yeah.
And so society has managed to persuade women that being a mother is not enough. And I'm not saying that you have to stay at home and look after your children. Absolutely not. Everyone should do whatever it is that makes them happy. But there should be no doubt in anyone's mind, if you ask somebody what they do and they say, I'm a mother, the next question to say, don't you work, is just ridiculous. We need to stop and think about that.
Yeah.
And I think that for me, where feminism went completely wrong was we thought that we needed to become like men to be significant and to have any meaning. And for me, I think, no, what we need to show the world is that the feminine characteristics are so valuable. And what we have now is a society that does not value feminine traits. So if you're thinking about what's a typical female, and I know I'm really generalizing, and there will definitely be some women who've got more male traits, you know, I'm not trying to exclude anyone, but on the whole, I would say that women are interested in people and men are interested in things as a complete generalization. Yeah. And so the professions that women tend to go for are the caring professions, whether it's the children, the sick people, the old people, and they're the worst paid professions. And that's not mentioning mother, you know, you're not paying anything. No. And yet, if you want to have a nice, good society, what kind of society do we want to be? Do we want to be the society that the only thing that matters are the masculine traits of, you know, being aggressive, being pushy, being strong? Nothing wrong with those. But we need both. And so for me, it's all about yin and yang and getting this balance of I recognize and see and value the male traits, and I recognize and value and see the female traits.
Yeah.
And yeah, so...
Yeah.
If we had, we have many listeners who are probably a mother, and having this balance between being a mother and working, and they feel like they're not enough. What would you give them advice to these women? That should they focus on being a mother first, or should they still running to become career? I mean,
I hate the word career.
Yeah,
honestly, I hate the word career because when you have a life, you have a life, and I think this whole thing of a career is what's made us go wrong. Yeah, of course, you know, like at the age of 54 or 53, my life took a complete turn. And like you said, Rebecca, I've got all these fancy titles. Yeah. And in fact, I had a battle with my company. I don't want to be a vice president. I would like my title to be mother of the company, because that's who I make sure that the team is okay. I've just like driven my colleagues to the airport because, you know, you want to. And that's such an important role, whether you're the mother of your family or the mother of the company. You're basically making sure that everybody has their needs met, what they need in order for them to be able to excel. So what I can't understand for myself is my children are my most valuable asset.
Yeah.
And why would I take this most valuable asset and give it to somebody else, or him or her to somebody else, to bring up with their values and their rules or whatever? And I just think, I personally don't want that. I was very blessed, and I know I was blessed because we could afford that I stayed with the children. So it was, and I know I can see it with my daughter and who's just got married, and my son-in-law. They will live in London and they will find it financially very difficult for one of them to stay at home. So I think often women have to go to work.
Yeah.
But that we have managed to persuade women to leave at a very young age, these helpless little individuals who cannot protect themselves, cannot say what's going on in their life, and go off and sit at a computer and earn money for someone else. We've gone wrong.
I also read somewhere somebody who said, like, when we go to, we are supposed to work like we are not parents, and we're supposed to be parents like we're not like we don't have a job. So it's like we're separating these two areas of our lives, and we don't, we feel like we're failing at both.
Yeah,
because we're doing that.
Because you've got no time left for yourself. So probably, the children will be okay because you'll make sure that you spend every spare minute that you can. But at least, when it's really hard bringing up children, and there's nothing harder. And I see now that I'm working full time, I do not see how it is possible to work full time and be there for the children because you're not there. When I get back from work, I need to have my cup of tea and I need to come down. Well, if you've gone and picked up your children from kindergarten, and I used to observe this at kindergarten, they'd come along and they'd still be on the phone in their last meeting, and they weren't there focusing on their children. And if you think about your life, let's say you live for 80 years and you have 20 years being a child yourself and then growing up, going to university, doing whatever you do. And then really your children, depending on how many you have, you need to be taking, 15 to 20 years to bring them. You've still got half your life left to do something else if you want to. And I think there'll be plenty of professions that you can do that you can combine it better. But what I'm just trying to say is being a mother is enough.
Yeah.
Oh, me and Hannah, we're breathing out.
Yes, we're breathing out.
I'm going through, but Hannah, do you want to share something?
Yes, I have actually 3. I have two sons and 1 daughter, and 1 is on the way, so 4. So I'm going on the Rachel's number 4. So it doesn't stop me, because the thing is, being a mother is a very beautiful thing, and I think. The reason I went into this Bitcoin is it kind of gave me a realization that I can take control of my life, and it doesn't have to be but just by investing, but there is so much thing we can do instead of working for someone else. I can do it anywhere in the world, but at the same time I could take care and nurture my family, so it gave me a lot of time. So instead of, as you said, working 9 to 5 for someone else, why cannot take this opportunity, this revelation, and make a platform for myself and my own terms?
Yeah, we can give life.
Yes.
It's unbelievable. And I think if we could get back to the yin and the yang, I mean, really, the whole purpose of the woman is to give birth and to nurture. And the role of the man is the protector. So his reason to be is to protect and provide for the family. And I think when people have got these roles that they understand, and it's been with us for thousands and thousands of years, you're not going to let it disappear in a couple of generations. It makes everybody happier because they know what their role is. At the moment, women don't know what it is to be a woman. Men don't know what it is to be a man. We're all messed up. We're all chopping bits off our bodies, and nobody's happy. It's not that this. Now, one thing that I would say is, I think it was really wrong that women were not financially independent. So I'm a big proponent for financial independence, because I think that the work that women do is extremely valuable. And I don't think that it's right that we have to be dependent on our partner, the male in our life, for financial independence. And this is what Bitcoin is for me, I think, because I think what it will lead to once we move on to a Bitcoin standard, there won't be the same kind of tax system, there won't be the same kind of child benefits and all the rest of it. It will be a contract between the man and the woman that they want to produce a family, they want to start a family. Now, how is this financially going to work for us? So you'll be talking to your partner, okay, who's going to be the one to go out and earn the money, who wants to be the one who stays up and brings up the children, but that shouldn't put you in a financial disadvantage for the rest of your life, because you're doing the most important job. So that's what I think will happen with Bitcoin, because Bitcoin is a true measure of time and energy. And so the time and energy that I devote to bringing up the next generation needs to be recognized and needs to have a value put to it. And we don't put any value. We don't put any value to it in a monetary sense, in a value sense.
No.
And it's a real problem. The biggest problem that Europe is facing, it will be demographics.
Yeah.
We don't have enough children.
Because people are putting off having kids, or
women don't want them, and I can't blame them, because firstly, they think their career is important. And so then, and you are at a disadvantage if you take the time out and you're not doing those stupid 12, 14-hour days, if you think that's what's important. And it is a real financial kick. I mean, my pension apart from these last couple of years, I would have €300 a month pension.
Yeah.
Because you did the most beautiful work by taking care of the children at home and being a mother.
Yeah.
And that is the consequences of your beautiful, I mean, the action basically, because you want to be a mother, but the result is that you get €300.
But if you want to look at it this way, if it weren't for my children, I would never have discovered Bitcoin, because it was my son who brought me to Bitcoin. I will be eternally grateful, because who cares how many euros you've got? It's pieces of toilet paper. I didn't realize it at the time, but I realize it now. It doesn't matter whether my pension is 1,000, 3,000, 5,000, because it has no meaning. And what does that mean? How much money will I have in 5 years? We don't know what €5,000 will be worth. We know what portion of the pie you've got if you've got so many Satoshis out of this total 21 million Bitcoin.
Yeah. So I heard on that Les Femmes Orange in BTC Prague one year ago, one woman stood up and said, well, we can actually print Bitcoiners. And
yes.
They're really scared.
That's lovely. Yeah, that's true.
Rachel, you mentioned that the reason that you're into this Bitcoin mining is because of your son, Patrick. Yes. My question is, you went from banning your son from your family chat group and trusting him enough to invest. But what did it teach you about trust, change, and taking risk?
Say yes to everything.
There we go.
Say yes to everything. I know at the beginning when I went to my very first Bitcoin event, and it was quite a hardcore Bitcoin event. It was in Switzerland, and I went into it. It was called the Citadella, which is a citadel, so it was full of these young men with their caps on the wrong way around, the programmers. And I walked in there and thought, oh my gosh, me grey-haired old woman, what are they going to think of me? And I just had a fantastic weekend. And when I was there, in the German-speaking world, well-known journalist came up to me, and I'd wanted to speak to him. I was doing at the time an unpaid internship with a Bitcoin mining company, and I wanted the owners of the company to be on his podcast. And so I said to him, listen, I want to talk to you at their conference. Can these guys come and be on their podcast? And he said, I want you to be on my podcast. And I said, no, listen, I'm the unpaid intern. And he said, no, I want you to be on my podcast. And I just thought to myself and thought, well, it's his podcast. And if he thinks I've got something valuable to say, what is it for me to say I haven't? And I think this is one of the big problems that we women have. We think that what we have to say is not important, because that is the message that we have received for years and years and years. When I was at my first Bitcoin conference that I was actually speaking at, I was the only woman on the stage, and I was sitting in the speaker's lounge, and we were having a breakfast all together. And the man next to me said, I can't bear it when women talk about Bitcoin. I wish that I had the confidence that I have today. Yes. At the time, I was totally taken aback. And now I understand what the problem is. Generally speaking, the early adopters of Bitcoin are let's say your nerds, yeah? And I don't mean this in any, but I think people will understand what I mean.
They are.
They're the people who maybe don't find it so easy to relate to women, to understand women. And so on the whole, Bitcoin conferences are put together by men, because men were the ones, I'm convinced Satoshi Nakamoto was a man, convinced, because it's got all the trademarks of men, the focus, brilliance. I've got 3 sons. I love men. The world is a better place because we've got them. And so when they're putting together a conference, they're only thinking from their masculine mind. And so if you suggest a topic, they go, oh, well, that's boring. And you say, well, it's boring to you because you're looking at it from a masculine viewpoint. But from a feminine viewpoint, if you want to catch a woman for Bitcoin, you first have to explain to her why she needs it and why her children need it and why society needs it. Don't come to her with your hardware wallet and try and get her excited about a gadget. I cannot get excited about a gadget, but tell me why this will bring more fairness and well-being and abundance to all. Then then you light the fire in my belly. And if you light the fire in a woman's belly, she can move mountains, and she will move mountains. And this is why I started Les Femmes Orange, because I could see that there was, well, for a number of reasons, there were far too few women in the space. And I was thinking, this is the perfect investment for women, because you have to give no, that you just save. So you go and do whatever you're passionate about to earn your money, but whatever it is, whether, I don't know if you're a yoga teacher or a supermarket, whatever you're doing to earn your money. And then if you've got any spare cash at the end of the day, you can just save it in Satoshi. You don't have to work out which shares do I need to invest in. You don't need to understand the real estate market. So it's a perfect saving mechanism for busy women. And women are the ones who are still predominantly bringing up the children, predominantly doing the housework, predominantly looking after the parents, predominantly going out to work. So we're just busy. And we don't have time to sit and listen to a 2-hour podcast on how to invest. We don't have time.
No.
And I think this is a really, really good topic that you bring up, because me and Rebecca are in that kind of environment. There's happening a lot of events, and it's always full of men in the room, and we are the only, I mean, hands full of women. We are trying to convince both Rebecca and us, even though we might not know what we're talking about, by showing up and being there and be present and being a woman. And if we have an opportunity to ask any question, because the question we ask are not similar to the way the men think, but as long as we show up, slowly but surely we will be comfortable in our own shoes, and then we can ask those questions. At the beginning, we observe and look around and see what type of the audience is in there, and then we will make sure that we have the right question to respond. To ask.
What we decided in the end, because it's not in my nature to try and elbow my way in anywhere. So women tend to wait and to be asked to do something. And even when they're asked, they will then say, "Oh, I don't know if I can do it." So that's not the man's fault. None of this is anybody's fault. It's just the way that society is. And so we thought, well, let's just make our own stage. And so when Les Femmes Orange started off, we put on 2 events a year in the Bitcoin Hotel in Germany. And it wasn't exclusively for women, but we thought if it's made by women, that it's going to attract more women. And so we said that men would be welcome, but they should bring a woman. So whether it's their sister, their mother, their grandma, their girlfriend, it doesn't matter, but bring a woman so that the balance in the room is good. And so our very first one was actually 70% women, 30% men. And the men at the end of it said, that was the best event I've ever been to. They liked the lack of competition. They liked the emotions. They liked the conversations. They liked the atmosphere. We did a campfire. We were singing around the campfire. We were telling stories. We were crying, we were laughing, so it was full of emotions. We just done one for International Women's Day, and I had to really laugh when I was looking at the program. One of our subjects was about, and I'm very sorry if this is off-putting for any of your listeners, vaginal mucus. And the room were going, what's this got to do with Bitcoin? It's got everything to do with Bitcoin, because in the fiat world, a tiny proportion of financing goes to female health. It's ridiculously low. And I would like to quote a number because I know it makes me sound more intelligent. So I'm going to make one up. 2% of financing, medical financing, goes to women's health. And
that's wrong.
It is nothing.
Yeah.
And yet it's so important to get this right. And you can tell from the consistency of your vaginal mucus, you can tell so much about your cycle anyway, but your general health. And so for the women, it made perfect sense. If we can get to a Bitcoin standard where women's health is considered as important as male health, because if half of your population is not healthy, your society is not healthy. Yeah. So I think often for the women is they understand Bitcoin, and that's great. I don't need to talk about it all the time. I've understood it. Thank you. That's enough. And yes, I'm really grateful for all the people who are going on and making all these wonderful new products, but I don't need to talk about it all the time. I want to get on with my life, knowing that I've got this wonderful technology that's going to help my children in their future, help me in my future to be financially independent.
Yeah. Yeah,
but very interesting on that topic. You did a career shift into the Bitcoin. I mean, you have a background as an educator and a speaker, I think, and then you went to Bitcoin mining. I mean,
because I was thinking when you learn about Bitcoin, the energy part of it is something that has a big question mark about, is this wrong for society? Is this a waste of energy? And so I wanted to understand Bitcoin mining better. And I'd kind of understood that everything is about energy, but I was relatively ignorant about the working. So the first thing I did was this unpaid internship in mining to learn what I could about mining, and also just to get into the Bitcoin space. And the deeper I go into the Bitcoin mining space, the more excited I get. And this sounds maybe a little bit weird, but I believe that the way that Bitcoin is going to come to Europe is through Bitcoin energy. Because in Europe, we have a problem with energy. We do not have abundant, affordable energy, and we're pricing ourselves out of the global markets with our ridiculous energy policies that we've got to try and achieve this renewable energy quota by a certain date. And what has become very obvious is that Bitcoin mining is the missing piece of the puzzle. If that really is what we're trying to do, achieve a certain amount of a quota of renewables, and I see this always in speech marks, because I've come to the government's come up with all these ideas, but we don't know the side effects that it's going to have. So you think that this is the way that we need to go, but then you look at the fields that are plastered full of solar panels, and you think, is this really the way that we need to be going in Europe? But it's becoming more and more obvious that if we want to achieve the energy transition of Europe, we cannot do it with solar, wind, and batteries alone. And along comes Bitcoin mining, and it's that missing piece of the puzzle. So for the viewers who are maybe new to the topic, the grid was built for a time when we had power sources such as gas, coal, these constant power sources. And the grid has to be kept at 50 hertz at all times. So the amount of energy that goes in has to be equal to the amount of energy going out. Yeah. And that isn't a problem at all if you've got a gas-fired power station or a coal-fired power station, because I can turn it up and turn it down as necessary. If I bring renewables into the mix, which are very volatile, sometimes I have the sun, sometimes I have the wind, sometimes I don't. So I cannot turn it up and down as I need to. So what options do I have? Either I have to tell those solar farms, wind farms to turn off, which is what happens at the moment. You curtail the energy, which is a complete waste of money. Yeah. We are paying companies to switch off.
Yeah.
And obviously the cost of this is going on to the consumer at the end, where it's always the Mr. Taxpayer paying who ends up paying for it. So we can see with the price of our energy in Europe that we're just pricing ourselves out of any global competitive market.
Yeah.
In comes these flexible data centers, and that's all Bitcoin mining is a data center. But it has a lot of traits that other data centers don't have. I can turn it on and off at will. I can put it anywhere. It can be in a desert, it can be in a field, it can be on the ocean, it can be anywhere, because all it needs is electricity and a very small amount of internet for it. It doesn't even need much bandwidth. Yeah. They're very flexible. I can have one computer, one miner, I can have 1,000 miners. And the beauty of the Bitcoin miners is that they produce a lot of heat. And so actually what we're doing with my company, Terahash, so we started off doing research into renewable energy and Bitcoin mining. And the reason why we started was we were trying to solve a problem that we had. So the mother company, it's a German company that's been around since the Second World War, and it's your typical made in Germany. We make car parts, we make cosmetics, and we make the plastic spraying technology. And all of the 3 factories that we've got need a lot of energy. And so when the Ukraine war started and the price of energy in electricity in Germany skyrocketed, we had a problem. And the CEO of the company had just come across Bitcoin.
Wow.
And he saw very quickly, wait a minute, I've got a lot of solar on my roof, but the factories don't work at the weekend and they don't work in the evenings and they don't work, with COVID, there was a lot of turning off of the factories. So I could put a couple of Bitcoin miners, I could run them, use the heat to go into our hot water boiler, which we need for our cosmetics. And so we were starting off by solving the problem of the clay.
Very, very, very locally.
And you think, well, if we have this problem, there's going to be plenty of companies across Europe which have got the same problem. And that's often how companies start, how ideas start. You're solving your own problem, and then it grows into something that you think, okay, let's replicate this across Europe. And the most recent project we've done is one in Finland. We've got a mine in Finland, 1 megawatt of CO2 neutral energy. So it's predominantly from hydro. There is a bit of nuclear in the mix, and we are using the heat from the miners to heat a small town and an industrial park. Yeah. And we're providing demand response services. So when the grid operator has a problem because there's too many renewables, he can switch off our miners. We're happy because he pays us to switch the miners off, and he pays us more than we can earn when we're Bitcoin mining. The district heat provider is happy when we get switched off because he gets recompensed more money than it costs him to pay for gas to be turned up to provide the heat that we would otherwise.
Yes.
So
it's a win-win.
Win-win. And it's all economically viable.
Yeah. And these are, I think I read somewhere like 15,000 households, or is it more?
12,000. So it's, I mean, I don't want to make it bigger than it is because we're not the only heat provider of heat. So the district heat provider will have a number of sources of heat because he has to also be careful in case anything went wrong with the data centers. So they use sometimes pellets, they use sometimes gas, they use sometimes data centers. So they will have a mix. But the data centers, when they're running, they're producing. And the beauty of the Bitcoin data centers is they are making these computers to produce a higher heat than normal because the district heaters need 80 degrees centigrade. I can't do that with another data center because it will ruin the computer if I have it coming. And so we're seeing a whole new industry grow up. And imagine that this is what we're doing. We are mining Bitcoin really to get the heat, firstly, to help stabilize the grid. And then the Bitcoin is a waste product. But also, if you understand Bitcoin, that's the highest waste product in the world.
I could live in that world.
Yeah, for sure. We could live the world. Another thing, you mentioned a project in Finland, but I also made a little bit of research. You're also expanding in Ethiopia. Is it correct?
We do. We mine ourselves in Ethiopia. So yes. So if you look around the world, basically what a Bitcoin miner needs is cheap electricity. So you're in this global competition to get the cheapest electricity you can so that you can put as much hash power online as you can. So you've got more likelihoods to find a block. So Ethiopia has got an awful lot of hydropower because they've just made this enormous dam. And so electricity in Ethiopia is very cheap. So at the moment, it's really worth having your computers there and mining. However, you don't know what the future will bring in a place like Ethiopia. So we were mining, for example, in Paraguay, and overnight the government in Paraguay changes its mind and says, from now on, we don't want foreigners in Bitcoin mining, or whatever the rules are. When you're mining in a different jurisdiction, the rules can change overnight. And what our real goal is to bring hash power to Europe. Firstly, because we believe in Europe. I've lived in many places around the world, and I know that Europe is home for me and it's where I would like to live. And so this is a personal desire for me to make Europe. I don't want to be the last in this race to accumulate Bitcoin mining. And the beauty of Europe is we are going to have to be very intelligent when it comes to Bitcoin mining because our electricity prices are so high. So in order to be able to mine economically in Europe, you need a second income. So either you're earning money from the heat or you're earning money from the grid operator because you're providing demand response services. And when you have these integrated systems, which are then much more decentralized, it becomes impossible for them to be switched off. And we will be such an integral part of the energy infrastructure that you can't ban it. Because if they banned it, then the electricity transmission grids would fall apart. And so the more intensely we can integrate Bitcoin mining into the energy infrastructure that exists, the more it's there to stay.
So I have a question. It is April 28th today, and I just heard the news. I never watch the morning news, but I heard that the electricity had got off in all of Spain and Portugal, I think, and Andorra. Do you think Bitcoin energy infrastructure could have helped here if we were already on it, to stabilize it? I have not.
This is precisely what it can do. This is precisely what it can do. So like I said earlier, the grid has to be kept stable at 50 hertz. And it's a really difficult job for the grid operators to keep it stable when you've got a lot of renewables coming in. And the funny thing is, well, it's not funny at all, it's tragic. The grid operators are these big, unwieldy companies, which are pretty much government run. I mean, all but in name only. And I also set up something called the European Bitcoin Energy Association because I could see that we need to be talking on a European level, and we need to be trying to educate on a European level as to why Bitcoin mining will become an essential part of the energy infrastructure. What the policy is that we're trying to do at the moment, we need to educate the energy companies because the energy companies they've got the clout that when they understand why they need to be. And in my opinion, energy companies in Europe will become the Bitcoin miners of the future. Because if a grid wants to stay stable, so say there's a lot of sun, then if the grid operator has got a couple of containers of cheap air-cooled miners that it can just switch on and switch off as it wants. So when there's a lot of sun, he knows that he switches on the miners. When there's not so much sun, you turn the miners off, you fill the batteries. So it's like this beautiful piece of a puzzle. So you would first fill your batteries, obviously, because that's your store for when there is no sun. But you can't put enough batteries up. Firstly, it doesn't hold the power long enough. And secondly, when you look at the peaks and the peaks of the solar, it's just in very small areas in the middle of the day that you've got these peaks. It's not worth having that much extra battery storage for the few times that you need it. And so that's the time that you put your Bitcoin miners on. And when you're using Bitcoin miners to stabilize the grid, you don't use the expensive energy efficient ones that you would use for getting heat recapture. You use your cheap S9 miners, the ones that have been around for 12 years that you can now buy on the secondhand market for 10 euros. And so the grid operator then has this customer which has never been known before, a customer that is so greedy for energy, but it will happily be turned off and nobody will make a fuss because there's no customer. So as long as you pay the Bitcoin miner to turn off, so he's happy. But in the end, it will be the electricity company themselves that are the grid, that are the Bitcoin miner.
Yeah,
it's the only way. It's the only way that we can keep our grids stable.
Yeah, and in Sweden we have a lot of surplus hydro energy.
Yeah,
that it's just.
The thing is, there's already a lot of Bitcoin mining going on in Sweden. I know of a company that's already doing grid stabilization in Sweden, but they don't want to talk about it.
What's the reason behind it, Rachel? Why they not talk about it? Because it seems like we have a solution. I mean, we have an amazing solution that can do so much for many. What are the reason?
Because the narrative hasn't completely changed yet. So the first narrative that came out about Bitcoin mining was that it's dirty and that it's going to boil the oceans and kill the atmosphere. So this is the narrative against which we are constantly trying to fight. We are winning this fight. So if you look at the last academic peer-reviewed studies to come out, of the last 24, 22 of them were very much in favor of Bitcoin mining. Even KPMG has issued a report showing how beneficial Bitcoin mining is. And because the regulations are not yet in place to protect Bitcoin mining, they're worried that if the powers that be discover that it's going on in their jurisdiction, they will stamp down on it. So the mining that we're doing in Finland, the district heat operator doesn't know that it's Bitcoin mining that's providing the heat. He knows it's an HPC, a high performance computing. It is a data center.
Okay.
So we're still trying to make that click happen, that people don't hear Bitcoin and think dirty.
Okay, so you're experimenting basically the energy, but once they are happy with it, then you say, yeah, this is Bitcoin mining. So they will then say, aha. So it's kind of like a psychological trick on the company.
It totally is. And when I was putting together the board for the European Bitcoin Energy Association, I knew who I wanted to have on the board, because I wanted the voice to be as fiat as possible. So, for example, one of the guys who's on the board was 10 years working for the Green New Deal. Then another guy on the board has been working for the last 30 years for one of the big grid operators. Now, he's not come on in the name of the grid operator because they don't want to have anything to do with Bitcoin. So he's come on in his own, but he speaks the language.
Yeah.
And so what we're putting together at the moment is a story to show that of all the regulations that have come out of the EU which are regarding the energy transition, we are showing them how Bitcoin mining is going to help them to achieve that using their language. You have to use the language of the person that you're sitting. You can't come with the wrong way and tell them that taxes are robbery and whatever, that you can't do that. You have to speak their language and you have to pick them up where they are. And women are good at doing this.
I was exactly saying that. Maybe you pick that skill up and develop that for 20 years to bringing up your kids.
Hey, I developed so many skills bringing up my. It was the best training ground I could have had for life in a company. You learn so many skills. You're bringing these 4 little adults and the husband.
Yes, of course, that is a little adults as well, a part of it. Rachel, I mean, you often encourage Bitcoiner inside the big company to stay where they are and make change slowly and partially. Can you share why this approach that you take, drip method? Because it's so powerful, and maybe a moment when you saw it's really worked, because I know you have a case there. There was 2 guys in the same company. Can you explain the drip method?
So when we opened our doors 2.5 years ago with Terahash, we knew that energy was going to be a big thing, but we weren't 100% sure which direction we were going to go. And at the very beginning, it tended to be your Bitcoin maxes who would be sitting around the table thinking, this is so cool, we've got this German company who's doing Bitcoin mining. And we've seen the progression such that the last open day, we have an open day once a month where we show people around our energy lab so they can get a hands-on experience of what Bitcoin mining is. Sitting around that table was an energy company, a solar company, a heating company. So we've seen this transition over the 2 years. And what happened, one of the very first people to get in touch with me was this guy who works for a very large German energy company. And he was really trying to orange pill the board in order for them to just listen about what Bitcoin mining was. So we were kind of working on a strategy about how he was quite close to the board. He was one below the board. We were working on a strategy as to how he could achieve this. And then maybe 3 months, 6 months later, I got a call from somebody else in the same company, but a different division with more or less the same kind of thing. And I said to him, well, do you know X, this first guy? No, never heard of him. So brought those 2 together. And within a couple of weeks, we had a workshop, because then those two departments get together. So if you work in a company, you have to be very careful. You have to not go over the top and hammer people with Bitcoin, because then you switch them off. And I'm the biggest offender. I am the absolute biggest offender. I made mistakes with my own family, which were a bit painful. You can't persuade people. But what you can do is show people. And this is what you should never be a missionary. And I actually have a new partner. So my husband and I have separated in the most loving of, we will be the parents to these children for the rest of our lives. If anyone had told me 3 years ago that this is going to happen, I would have thought that it can't possibly be. But a lot of things changed. The pandemic changed a lot. Bitcoin changed a lot. And my new partner is actually a regenerative farmer. And he was one of the first farmers in Germany to change to be a regenerative farmer. And I had no idea what it was. So, and basically it's Bitcoin on a farm, because what you say is you have to have a healthy foundation. You have to have a healthy soil. And he has taught me through experience of himself is just get on with it and do it. And people will watch what you do. They won't watch what you say.
No, exactly.
So if they see you living the life and they think, well, she's really relaxed, she doesn't seem bothered about these latest tax increases that are coming in, and she doesn't seem bothered about this, that, and the other, why are you so relaxed about it? And when they start coming to you and asking the questions, so that's how you need to be in the company. And you need to come with actual solutions to a problem that they have. And this is why women of a certain age understand Bitcoin faster than young women, because women who are going towards pensionable age have a massive problem. As if they've stopped and had children, they've got a massive financial problem. And so they will understand Bitcoin quite quickly as a solution to one of their problems.
Yeah.
An energy company will understand quickly this customer that will suck up energy like a sponge, but I can turn it off. Yeah. I was doing a presentation in Portugal at an energy forum, and I just talked about this black box. You don't have to understand what Bitcoin mining is doing. It's electricity going in, and it's heat and a digital asset coming out, which can be converted into money. That's all you need to know.
Good.
With Rachel, I actually I talked about with Rebecca before this podcast. I said I had a brilliant idea. Let me pitch it for you. I was thinking, I was one of my we had another guest, EBEA Thiding, and she's very into blockchain, climate, Web3, and IE. So I got a lot of information from her, and then I went to another event with blockchain event with Vinova, and then a Saturday we had a cleaning day at our community basically, and I hate cutting the grass. So I was thinking, and Sunday morning, believe it or not, it's 6 o'clock in the morning, I was like, what can we do about this cutting the grass? So I was thinking, we have a robot which called robot what you call more lawn. Why can't we put mining into that system as a Bitcoin mining into this robot at the same time? First of all, is doing the job that I need to solve. Same time, I'm making money by mining it. And then second of all, I collect the data for the climate, see how much I really need to use to cut my grass. And that this data, I can present it. I mean, see, really, do I really need to cut the grass so much? I mean, all in together. What do you think about this idea that I have? We're making money. We're helping the climate.
Where are you getting the electricity from to run your miner?
I haven't got too far. That's why I have you today to ask me that question. I don't know.
That's the bottleneck to your little plan where you need to have surplus energy, which you're getting for less than 6 cents for a kilowatt hour. And I think you might be finding that a little bit difficult.
Yes.
But I think it's interesting, the path that you're following, because I think that what will eventually happen is every washing machine will have a Bitcoin miner in it. I think that every appliance where you need heat will have a Bitcoin miner in it.
Exactly. That's what I was thinking. It will come.
It will come because we want mining to be as decentralized as. I don't want these big mining farms that are mining megawatts. I mean, it can go in two ways. I don't know if you've read the Jason Lowry book about soft wars. So there's one way of thinking that they believe that Bitcoin mining will become a bit of the way that countries fight each other, but in a very non-bloody way. You know, so it will be a battle of the hash power. That will be the way we fight each other. What I hope will happen is, and we already see with the BitAx and with the Ocean Pool, which is an open source pool, or Demand Pool with an open source pool, there's a lot of people working very hard on decentralizing mining. And that is the way we should go forward, because it's the same with Les Femmes Orange. Les Femmes Orange is nothing. It's not a company. It's not an association. It's an idea. And because it's just an idea, it's spreading really fast, because anybody can take the idea, and there's just one rule, and that's that it's Bitcoin only. Just to make it easier for people to understand, because this whole Web3 blockchain muddies the water, and it particularly muddies the water for women. They tend to be the ones who get really excited about this blockchain stuff, and you think, oh gosh, stop it! You just need to understand Bitcoin. I have no idea which of the blockchain is going to be of any relevance. My gut feeling is none of them, but I don't want to be as arrogant as to say that I know that. But all you need to understand is the Bitcoin blockchain, and that will solve the problems that you're facing at the moment.
That helps me relax a lot, because there's so much about Web3 and blockchain and stuff that's going on right now in Sweden. And even though the conversation around Web3 and blockchain is taking off, like in politics and these associations, Bitcoin is still like an ugly word.
Yeah.
Among all these,
they can control Web3. They can control all the other blockchains. And so I do a lecture for the Frankfurt School of Blockchain Technology. So from the name, you think, oh, that sounds fantastic. And indeed, it used to be. It had this really, really good director who unfortunately came to a very untimely death in his 40s, very unexpectedly. And the person who's taken his place is very much against Bitcoin. He's paid to be against Bitcoin. If you look at who's subsidizing the Frankfurt School of Blockchain Technology, it's all of the other cryptocurrencies. And yet they are still putting on this Bitcoin Talents, which was started by his predecessor, which is the one that I go along and talk to. But I actually talked to the Bitcoin Talents, and I talked to the DeFi talent, DLT.
Yeah.
And the DLT tends to be all these women. And I've got no time whatsoever for blockchain, but I've got a lot of time for women. And I don't want to go along there and act like I don't know. None of us know. But I can explain why Bitcoin is really important to me. And if you talk to anybody and say, can you just explain in 2 sentences Web3? I've never heard anyone be able to explain it.
We learned it a few days ago, but it is a difficult to explain anything.
Is it decentralized?
No, I don't think so.
So
the only thing that I learned, at least the Bitcoin is the mother of the coin. So the rest is extra. But maybe they're not decentralized. As Rebecca's distraction.
I was listening to an Ethereum podcast, and it was 2 bigwigs in Ethereum explaining proof of stake. They can't, because it's rubbish. And yet proof of work is very easy to explain, because, it's this decentralized system, and it makes perfect sense. When it makes perfect sense, you can explain relatively easy to somebody who's receptive to understanding.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got to first, the person has got to be open to a new idea.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to put away everything that you thought to be true. And that's a difficult thing. And for some people, it's much more difficult than for others. And I think that's probably why I understood Bitcoin next to my son, who was the one who bought it to the family, I understood it after reading Check Your Financial Privilege by Alex Gladstein, who's the human rights organizer. That was for me that, oh my gosh, the monetary system is rigged. Yeah. It was, oh my gosh, because I've lived in Africa, I've lived in China, I've lived in the Middle East, and I saw, especially living in Africa, you think this is the best country I've ever lived in. It's got all the resources, it's the most beautiful country. Why is it so useless? And then you read the book and think, oh my gosh, we're making it that. The whole system is making it that all the time. It doesn't matter what they do, and there's plenty of their own corruption. The whole system is rigged to keep the poor poor and make the rich richer. Yeah. And that was my aha moment when I just thought, I have to work for Bitcoin. I have to work for Bitcoin because that is the system that's going to bring the most fairness for my children to have a sustainable future.
Yeah. And actually, you mentioned Alex Gladstein. I actually had a question here. I know you discovered Alex Gladstein's work about human rights, Bitcoin and human rights. So my question was actually, can you share how his idea changed the way you see Bitcoin? Not just an investment, but something bigger. And you answered the question. It's amazing that you already answered this amazing question. Do you advise everyone to read this, Alex Gladstein's book?
It depends who you are. It honestly depends who you are. So I used to sit and watch podcasts, a Bitcoin podcast with my husband. Yeah. And so occasionally I could get him to watch Natalie Brunell podcast. She used to do one that was called Coin Stories. And I remember the end of him going, oh, why does she waste so much time at the beginning getting to know their story? And I said, I love the story. Yes. I want to hear the story because if I can relate to that person, then I'm interested in listening to what they say. And so there's no point telling some people to read an Alex Gladstein book because they don't care. No. They don't care about the equality and the fairness and unfairness. What I learned in my 30 years living abroad, and this was a real eye-opener for me because I've lived in Muslim countries. I was brought up a Christian, but at the age of 12 I left the church, and I remember going to my mum and saying, I don't want to get confirmed, I don't believe in it. And it was quite a brave thing to have to do because my mum was a Sunday school teacher. So even when I was a child, I was kind of questioning, why are we doing this? It doesn't make sense to me. But in all of these different countries I lived in, the one thing that was exactly the same was every woman wants the best for their child. We're all the same. We're absolutely all the same. We all want the best future that we can provide for our children, give or take one or two odd examples of psychopaths. And all the rest of it is just noise, So if I was born in that country, I would be a Muslim, and if I was born in that country, I would be a Buddhist. It's got nothing to do with truth. It's got to do with the story that you grow up with. I don't know why I've started telling you this.
No, with the stories.
But yes, the story. But if we're gonna end the I think we're timing. I don't know what it is.
I'm trying to sum up, but you have so many questions, Hanil.
Yes, sorry. I just want a last question here. Where do you see mining in Europe between 5 to 10 years? I think it's very important because you're expert on those areas. So where are we heading?
Within 3 years, we will not be able to think Bitcoin mining away from the European energy infrastructure. Because if people knew what we've got in the pipeline, and most of it we can't talk about, unfortunately, because you have to sign an NDA agreement. So we know who's sitting around our table. We know who's asking us questions. We know who's getting really interested. What we need is the investor money to flow in for this to be able to notch up a scale. So actually what we're doing with Terahash is something really interesting. We're trying to make it easier for investor money to come in. And in order to do this, we are setting up these companies called SPV, special purpose vehicles, which is very well known in the investor world, which is how renewable projects are usually financed. So when we set up a new project, so let's say at the moment we're going to go online with a 1.2 megawatt farm in Finland in July. Then 2 months later, we've got a 4 megawatt that's going online. And we could be having as many megawatt as we wanted to, because the whole of Finland is looking to move to e-heat, so electrical heating from electricity rather than from pellets or gas or whatever. So the whole system is trying to move on to electric heat. Well, what's the best provider of electric heat there is? So there's not limitless, but there's an enormous market in Finland. If we could have the investor money tomorrow, we could go online with it. So we need to try and show investors that this is one of the safest investments that they can invest in. And if you do it in a way that they recognize what they're buying, so there are companies that will invest in a big battery project. So they will buy, rather than buying the battery, they buy equity in a company that owns the battery project. So this is what we are doing. We are then, when we're setting up a farm, we set up a special purpose vehicle, and then the investors can decide, okay, what would they like this company to be? Would they like it to be maybe 100% invested in Bitcoin mining in Finland? Or would they like the company to be 40% holding Bitcoin on the balance sheet, 30% mining in Finland, 30% mining in Ethiopia? How much risk do they want to take? How much do they want to do safety? Are they trying to tick their ESG boxes, which is still a thing in Europe, in which case, they will be wanting to invest as much as they can in renewable projects in Europe. So this is what we're trying to do, make it easy for the big money to come into Bitcoin mining.
Good plan. Where the money is where the innovation is.
And it will be the best investment they've ever made. Bitcoin mining is very tricky. I mean, it's not easy, and you get flushed out. You see how the miners get flushed out every 4 years if they haven't done their homework properly, if they haven't prepared for the halving, where suddenly half of the income disappears overnight. You have to time your projects well. You have to plan your projects so that the return on investment comes quickly enough, because what we don't know with mining is where it's going. So if you'd have looked at mining 15 years ago, people could sit with their home computers and mine. And if you'd have told those people that in 15 years there will be special computers for mining, they wouldn't have believed you. And then it went from I could mine on my personal computer to I needed a GPU in order to mine. And then we moved on to these ASICs, which are the special application, and the only thing they do is the algorithm for hashing Bitcoin. Where are we going to be in 4 years? We don't know. The market is moving so quickly. So when you look in our energy lab, what we did, first of all, 2 years ago, was we took an old air-cooled miner, we removed the fans, we attached water inlet. It's beautiful sun here, it's coming in dazzling. Then the water runs through the miner, and it goes in cold and it comes out warm and it goes into our boiler. 2 years later, you've got perfect plug and play machines, and so the market, there's people working on this all over the place. And this is why I love living in Germany. I have become a German now, and the Germans, I think, are perfect Bitcoin miners because they're engineers. They love precision. What they do is good, and I think they're going to be the perfect ones for working on these intricate systems that are needed in Europe, that you eke out every last little bit of efficiency out of your machine. You don't waste any heat, you don't waste any electricity, you don't waste anything. And that is going to lead to an energy sovereign Europe, where energy is abundant, sustainable, and affordable for all. And what is not to love about that?
Yeah.
Amen. Amen.
I think I can stay in Europe a while more.
We could move to Germany to be the faster live there.
No, we don't need to. It's happening. It's happening, and it's going to happen everywhere. I mean, in France, there's quite a lot of talk going on about nuclear power and Bitcoin mining. everywhere there are these lovely pockets. And this is what I try and do with, whether it's EBEA, whether it's Les Femmes Orange. The more you can bring people together, the faster we move this ship, because then let's work together. If we work together and collaborate, because if you have Bitcoin and I have Bitcoin, in the end, it doesn't matter who gets the project. Anything that's good for Bitcoin is good for you and good for me.
Exactly.
So we can collaborate. We can forget all this competitive crap, and we can collaborate for the good of our motherland, or Europe, or whatever you want to call it. And let's all work together and move to this wonderful orange abundant future.
Yeah, there's a hope. That is the feminine way of doing it. I think.
Not with elbows.
Brings a lot of exactly. It's
not with elbows, with cooperation.
Yeah, brings out the feminine force in this world, Bitcoin. So one last question now before we round off this long and interesting episode. So this summer, will you take vacation, or will we see you somewhere in all these conferences, Bitcoin conference? Well, how do we maximize our chances of bumping into you, Rachel?
Please come to Finland. So I'm working a lot with the guys who are organizing Finland, because I think we need to have our own mining disrupt of Europe. So I think if we can bring all the miners together, we will move mining on.
Right.
I actually don't really want to go to Bitcoin conferences anymore. I've done that. Wonderful. I love Les Femmes Orange events. I think the future for us personally is energy events. So we're going to be at the Intersolar, which is the biggest renewable energy market in Munich. And we're a very small team. There's 5 of us, 6 of us, 3 full-time Bitcoiners and 4 full-time Bitcoiners, but we're a small team and we're spread very thinly. And I just don't have the capacity, particularly because I've now reached the stage where my parents need me more often. And I want to be with my parents. My parents did so much to help me with my children. And I can so feel that particularly my father's fading. And I never, ever want to think that I put a career before family. And so I spend an awful lot of time in England just walking with my dad on the downs and enjoying time with him, forgetting everything about his recent past and remembering everything about I love it.
Yes, and I had a chance to say hello to him, or he said hello to me.
Yes.
And I love his accent, and it reminds me of my mother's.
So for me, family is the most important. My daughter's just got married. You never know what that might bring. No pressure. No pressure. Who knows? But I definitely want to be in Finland in summer. And
is that Helsinki, or what? Helsinki. What's the whole name?
BTC Hell.
BTC Hell. Right.
And I think it's going to be brilliant. So we're going to do a Les Femmes Orange. And we also want to try and do the first Bitcoin job market there. So there's this wonderful woman called Anya, who has got BitVocation, which they scrape the internet for all the Bitcoin jobs going. And, there are lots of people who want to work in Bitcoin. So we want to see if we can do the first in-present job market. And there will be a lot about energy and Bitcoin mining, because Finland at the moment is the epicenter of mining in Europe. And my son, who orange pilled me, has moved to El Salvador.
Oh.
And so I would like to go to the El Salvadorian conference in November so that I can see him. And I think I'll probably do a Les Femmes Orange with Raina, who's from El Prima Bitcoin. So we were chatting. We've actually got this other organization that we've set up, which is international women are so good at networking. So there's me kind of representing Les Femmes Orange from Europe. Then there's the women who do the women in Bitcoin in the UK. There's Bitcoin Dada, who does Bitcoin in Africa. There's people who do it in America, in Canada. And we meet up once a quarter of a year, so 4 times a year, just to talk about the projects that we're doing and how can we help each other bring the word to women about Bitcoin, and Lena is part of that. So we were having a talk about how we can, what we can do in El Salvador to attract more women to.
That sounds like a busy and fun and inspiring year. Rachel. I mean, even if we don't bump into you physically, there's a lot of podcasts with Rachel that I really advise everyone to listen to. I think you're wonderful to listen to. You have a really nice way of expressing yourself and a lot of charisma, and I get always very inspired after listening and talking to you. So I'm very grateful for having you on our show. Yeah.
I loved it. I loved it.
Yeah. So thank you. And Hanni, no more questions. If you have one more questions, you can.
No. I have no question. I just wanted to say thank you, Rachel, for your time, and it was amazing to hear your story. So, hopefully we bump each other in Finland. You never know. I want to see you. So please,
it's not far away for you girls.
It's not far from Stockholm.
So to come to.
We will make the noise. We will make a noise all the way to Finland. Thank you, Rachel.
It's just a swim. So
yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. Take care.